Braden Schneider is your overtime hero in a huge 3-2 win for the New York Rangers. Plus, was that penalty against Matt Rempe the worst call in the history of sports?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1267 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So isn't this nice? We get to sit here and enjoy this together. The Rangers won a game. It's been a while. You know, they'd lost 4 in a row coming into this one, and they had a couple of wins while I was away on vacation. But bottom line, it's been a very, very long time since I've gotten to come on here, celebrate this one with you guys. So we're going to do our best to enjoy this one and enjoy the fact that in spite of literally everything that has gone so wrong this year, all the issues that this team has had on and off the ice, all the problems that seem to have lingered for pretty much the entire season. Believe it or not, the Rangers now tied with the Blue Jackets for the final playoff spot. The Jackets do have a game in hand. Those two teams will play each other on Saturday. So needless to say, another huge game coming up for the Rangers. But what a win this one was. Braden Schneider, your hero in overtime. The Rangers going into this game were 1-6 in 3v3 overtime. It's something that I tweeted out not too long ago, and I might have even mentioned it in the episode that covered their most recent overtime loss, but I'll repeat it again here for anybody that might have missed it. It is unfathomable to me that the Rangers could be 1-6. I know this is a far from perfect team, and clearly they have their issues, but when you look at their personnel, they seem like they have a roster of players that would really excel at 3v3 overtime. So for them to be 1-6, I think even in a season like this is completely inexplicable. But we get to enjoy the fact that they're now 2-6 in 3v3 overtime. And I figured the overtime was short enough. We might as well go ahead and just break it down here. And then obviously we're going to give props to Braden Schneider, who just came up huge with a goal, beautiful goal for this Ranger team. But the Rangers start the overtime with Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, and K'Andre Miller. So if anything goes wrong here, all of us keyboard warriors, we're ready to go, because these have been 3 of the players on this team that I think fans have targeted probably as much or more than anybody else, at least among the players that have been here the entire season. You know, Jacob Trouba was certainly under fire at the start of the season, toward the end of last season, but he's been long gone. These are the 3 guys that I think have heard it from Ranger fans probably about as much as anybody. So the stage is set. I mean, if they give up a goal here, fans are going to have a field day, and we'd certainly be talking about it here. But nothing bad happened. That's a positive development. You know, K'Andre Miller actually had a decent chance to win it pretty early here. Shot wide on a shot that I didn't think missed the net by that much. The Wild get possession. Zach Jones is on the ice by this point. He does a really nice job against Zuccarello in the corner. He's able to, body him and, not let him get by. Kreider also put a check on Zuccarello at this time. Zuccarello's out there 3v3 overtime. He's 1 goal away from his 100th goal as a member of the Minnesota Wild. He's playing his former team, the Rangers. The stage is completely set for him to win this game. And fortunately, that did not happen. But, eventually the play continues here, and you get JT Miller, Artemi Panarin, and of course, Braden Schneider all jumping onto the ice. You get JT Miller going over the blue line to Panarin. Panarin draws the defenders with him. I mean, it's Panarin, and there's all this open ice, so he's certainly going to command some attention. Panarin kind of pulls some of the defenders with him as he's going up the right side there, and then a nice behind the back backhand pass to Braden Schneider. So Schneider picks it up in the offensive zone and basically just fakes a guy out of his skates and goes to the net and roofs a shot on a backhand. Just an absolutely brilliant goal. Highlight reel kind of a goal here by Braden Schneider. Awesome stuff. There was a little bit of a delay here. The refs were reviewing it. I can only imagine. I'm not sure they ever actually confirmed this, but it seemed to me that what was being reviewed was just whether the puck had definitely crossed the goal line, which it did. Not by a lot, because Schneider did roof it, and it bounced out of the net pretty quickly there. Bottom line, that was a goal. There's no way that was getting overturned. And like I said, you can make a very strong case, I think, that is the biggest goal that the Rangers have scored all season. I realize They already had the 1 point. It's in overtime, but man, every point is so precious right now. And look, the very next game, we might have another goal scored by the Rangers that we feel is even bigger, because in the next game, we're one step closer to the end of the regular season here. The Rangers are battling for a playoff spot, and they're going to be playing a team that they are competing with for a playoff spot in the Columbus Blue Jackets. So if there's a big-time clutch late goal by the Rangers in the third period of that game or in overtime, then we'll have a new grand champion. But as of right now, tell me a bigger goal that the Rangers have scored this season other than this one by Braden Schneider. Absolutely huge. Made even bigger by the fact that the Rangers had lost 4 straight games. Yeah, 2 of them were in overtime, but and look, every point counts. We do have to point that out here, but you got to get things going here. I'm stunned, and a couple of you guys pointed this out on social media, because I tweeted a picture of the standings, and I basically said, it's right there, go get it. How bad do you want it, kind of a thing? And a couple of you guys mentioned something that, I'll talk about here. It's shocking that the Rangers could lose 4 straight games and then just win 1 and still be in this good of a position. It goes to show you that nobody's really running away with it. Senators have played well recently. They currently have the top wild card spot, but that second one, and really even the top wild card spot, they're certainly still up for grabs. And it's wild to me that, losing 4 straight games, albeit 2 of them in overtime, I would have thought that would have buried the Rangers at this point in the season when you consider how congested the standings are. But no, they're right there in it. And if they beat the Jackets, they'll be alone for that second wild card spot, at least for the time being. So again, absolutely huge goal by Braden Schneider. Happy to see him come through in the clutch here. I feel like he's come under fire from Ranger fans. Honestly, what player on this team has not come under fire from Ranger fans at one time or another during this season? And I think understandably so. Everybody has heard it from the fan base at one time or another here. But I do think Braden Schneider has played better than certain fans give him credit for. And there's going to be some people that'll fight me on that, and that's fine. I don't think he's had a brilliant season or anything like that. And certainly there have been times where every single defenseman on this team has scuffled in one way or another. But I think he's a really important player to this team going forward. And I think that's why you saw Chris Drury basically refuse to blink. The Rangers and Canucks were in that staring contest there. It was probably the worst kept secret that JT Miller was very, very likely going to be on his way to the New York Rangers via a trade. It really just came down to, okay, what's the return package for the Canucks? And I think that by not being willing to include Schneider, Drury kind of sent a message that, this guy is a very, very important player to this team. There have been teams in the past that, coming near the trade deadline have certainly inquired on Braden Schneider. He's a gigantic defenseman, former first rounder. I think has mostly played well since he's been in the league. Still very young. I believe Schneider's still just 23 years old. Manageable contract, of course. Teams are going to be interested in him. And I think that Drury has sent a message by refusing to include Schneider in some of these trade talks that, no, we really like this guy. We really value him. Now, nothing is ever for sure in this league, right? You never know what can happen. The trade deadline has come and gone. Would Schneider get moved in the offseason? I don't think so, just based on what we've seen. There have been a couple of times where the Rangers could have maybe pushed a trade along a little bit quicker if they included Braden Schneider in it. They haven't done it. They like Braden Schneider, and I think rightfully so. And something else to keep in mind here, there's been a lot of overturn on the Ranger blue line. We've seen Trouba get traded. We've seen Lindgren get traded. K'Andre Miller could go either way in the offseason, right? And I think his play down the stretch here could possibly help dictate that. We'll see what happens. But if K'Andre Miller is playing with a different team next year, then Braden Schneider becomes the second longest tenured Ranger defenseman on this team after only Adam Fox. That's pretty wild to think about. We still think of him sometimes as like the fresh-faced young defenseman of this group. And yeah, he still is young, and he's still younger than guys like Vakanainen and Borgen. But he's going to be this, like I said, the second longest tenured defenseman if K'Andre Miller ends up somewhere else. So I think the Rangers value him. They value the consistency. They value the versatility, playing with a million different defense partners since he's been called up to the league. We'll see what happens going forward, but I think that the Rangers are pretty sold on Braden Schneider being an important part of this team's future, and I would tend to agree there. It hasn't always been perfect, but I think Schneider has been a little bit more consistent than probably most of the Ranger defensemen that have played for the Rangers this season, both the guys that are still there as well as the guys that have been traded throughout the course of this season. But figure we can keep everything rolling in just a second here. We'll shift our attention to a lineup change that was made before this game and paid immediate dividends. I think just about everybody benefited from this very small adjustment made by Peter Laviolette going into this game. We're going to break that down and talk about why it worked, and why the Rangers should hopefully look to keep it going, keep using these line combinations in the future. We'll get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Trade Coffee. If you're like a lot of people, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but sometimes you can get tired of settling for grocery store brands that just don't cut it. That's why you turn to Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or you know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match just for you. The subscription makes it so easy. There are no more last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever just happens to be on the shelf. And if you don't love your first bag, don't worry about it. Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off of your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl for 40% off of your first offer. drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With the tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting on which to bet. Easy and fast, the FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the action, the college hoops action, all tournament long. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. On Locked On New York Rangers, a huge shout out to the everydayers, as always, for sticking with this roller coaster of a season that we're all currently enduring. Rangers going to be back in action on Saturday at 7 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Jackets have lost 4 out of 5. So hopefully the Rangers can take advantage of that and send them on a downward spiral going forward. We can only hope. So we'll have a Sunday episode on that. And then on Sunday at 7, Rangers are going to play the Edmonton Oilers. So two more huge games here. Obviously, the Rangers can't afford to have any more losing streaks, or at least I don't think they can. They just lost 4 in a row, and I mean, they're right in the middle of everything. It's pretty wild to think about. But one thing I noticed looking at the schedule that remains here is that the Jackets are the last true Eastern Conference bubble playoff team that the Rangers play down the stretch here. I mean, I guess you could include the Islanders or the Flyers, but honestly, if one of those teams passes the Rangers play each of those teams once. But if one of those teams passes the Rangers, then Rangers aren't making the playoffs, because that would have meant that they've made up a lot of ground and the Rangers aren't winning, and that would certainly not be good. So really, this is it. This is the last playoff bubble team opponent the Rangers play. So it's an absolutely massive game, and definitely looking forward to breaking down whatever happens in the next episode. But for right now, let's keep the focus on this game and a big-time adjustment that was made before the puck dropped in this one. You've lost 4 in a row, critical part of the season. I think you almost feel like you have to do something. And what that change was Cuylle for Lafreniere. And I'll elaborate on that change and why it worked and why that might be the way to go moving forward. But I also want to call out some attention to a tweet that I sent out during the day. Vince Mercogliano, he's on Twitter. He posted the Ranger line combinations, going into the game. And I retweeted it, and I kind of just asked everybody, and I'll ask everybody here too. When you see these line combinations at this point in the season, and when you think about how the season has gone and how often they've juggled the lines, certainly more often this year than last year. Of course, that's bound to happen when you're playing this much worse this season than you played last season. But I look at it, and I'm just kind of like, man, does anybody else just kind of feel numb when these line combinations get posted anymore? Like, it's kind of just like, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's see. Maybe it'll work. We haven't tried that yet. Why not? Let's just see how it goes. That's kind of how I feel. Now, with that said, this turned out great. My comments certainly were not, aimed at this specific change. But I also never thought that it would make this much of a difference, which it seemed to do during this game. First of all, again, it's a fairly simple change. It's just moving Alexis Lafreniere from top line right wing to second line left wing and flip-flopping him with Will Cuylle. And to kind of just break down everything that happened here, first of all, Will Cuylle. We saw him play the best game that he has played in months. I don't think he's necessarily played poorly. He's had some turnovers in some recent games that I thought were certainly less than ideal. At least one of them led to a goal. But we haven't seen him play a game like this in quite some time either. And I think a big part of it was this lineup change that they made. He gets a chance, Will Cuylle, to play on a line with Artemi Panarin and Vincent Trocheck. I would think that would probably get you going, get you excited for the next game for sure. But it was pretty apparent, even early in this game. We're talking midway through the first period that, Will Cuylle is back. That dude is back. The dude that is out there playing physical hockey, skating hard, certainly being a threat offensively, having a good shot as well. He just looked like a new man. There were a lot of plays in this game where I think that, he really showed that he was taking advantage of playing with Trocheck and playing with Panarin and just bringing it. He jumped off the screen in a much better way than he has, certainly in recent games. We saw him get the assist on the Trocheck goal. That was big time. That gave the Rangers a 1-0 lead. And certainly this was a game you could figure out by that point that, okay, scoring is going to be at a premium here. Any goal that gets scored by either team is going to be huge. And good blue-collar offensive zone possession for the Rangers. They actually had an extended offensive zone possession, and eventually the puck is worked to Will Cuylle. I think it was K'Andre Miller that got it there. Cuylle is in front of the net, the wild net, and he's got his back turned to the net, so he gets the puck to Vincent Trocheck very quickly. Trocheck's initial shot does not go, but he's able to get the rebound and bury it. So Will Cuylle obviously had a big hand in that. I thought that, Cuylle was really strong on the puck in this game, really strong behind the net as well. There was an instance where he had a couple of defenders, kind of bearing down on him. He's behind the net, and some really nice stick work there to keep the puck away from both of them, keep the possession alive for the New York Rangers. Again, just really solid hockey and somebody that seemed to really embrace that chance of playing with Panarin and Trocheck. There's certain young players that maybe would, squeeze the stick a little bit tighter and maybe kind of try to be a background player, so to speak. But Will Cuylle was very, very assertive in this game, played his physical brand of hockey that we all love, got the big assist. As far as his stat line, the assist, obviously, also a +1 on the night. 16 minutes, 22 seconds of ice time. Only 5 Ranger forwards had more time on the ice than Will Cuylle. Also had 4 shots on goal, 1 block shot, a game-high 7 hits as well. And the block shot was a big one, too. I believe he got it on the wrist, and he was kind of shaking it off on the bench there. We saw Kreider kind of give him a hug and give him a pat and just tell him keep doing that, or something along those lines for sure. Certainly showing appreciation for what Will Cuylle did on that play. Cuylle had a great game, and on the flip side of everything, Lafreniere just wasn't really playing all that well with Panarin and Trocheck. Even with Panarin being on a heater recently, just wasn't really pulling his weight on that line. So that kind of leads me into talking about Alexis Lafreniere, because he ends up moving down to the second line with JT Miller and Mika Zibanejad. Let me just say right off the bat here, anybody that needs a kick in the you-know-what on this team, just stick them on a line with JT Miller. It certainly seemed to work with Mika Zibanejad. He's playing better hockey than he's played all season. I know there's still certain things you can nitpick here and there, and there's certain things you'd like to see Mika do better, but Mika's played great. Mika's played a heck of a lot better with JT than certainly he had played at any other part of the season. And I think this is a good first showing for Lafreniere with JT Miller as well. I don't think he had as good of a game as Will Cuylle did. Don't think he really jumped off the screen the way that Will Cuylle did either. But I like this move for a couple of different reasons, and we'll get back to Miller and his line mates in just a second. But for starters, I just like the fact that they moved Lafreniere back to the left wing. Now, clearly last season, playing the right wing was not an issue for Alexis Lafreniere. We all kind of wondered how that was going to go because he's, more of a natural left winger, hasn't played right wing nearly as often. And, for somebody that you're trying to get to that next level, does a position change really make sense? It worked great last year. We know how good that line was with him and Panarin and Trocheck. They've gone to that line and away from that line and back to that line multiple times this year. Mixed results at best for that trio. But now you take Alexis Lafreniere and you put him back at the left wing. This is the first time, per a tweet from Larry Brooks, that Lafreniere lined up at left wing since Game 7 against the Devils 2 years ago. He spent all of last season at right wing and all of this season at right wing until this night. I don't know. The bottom line, Lafreniere has struggled, so put him back in his natural position. And I just think that sometimes changing positions can put you back on your toes a little bit, like in a good way. Like, okay, I'm ready. I'm back at left wing. Like, okay, let's dig in here and kind of get used to playing this side again. Not that it's like an astronomical difference or that's going to solve everything that's gone wrong with Lafreniere this season, but I just like that idea. Get him back on his toes a little bit. And speaking of which, I think putting him with JT Miller is going to do that as well, because Miller is a tone setter. We've seen that he's had a good effect on Mika Zibanejad, and hopefully the same thing can happen with Alexis Lafreniere. I also think Lafreniere and Mika Zibanejad, those two haven't played on the same line all that often during Lafreniere's tenure, but I've always felt like those two have some sneaky chemistry, and I didn't see any like huge examples of that in this game, but I'm curious to see how the two of them perform together moving forward, because I can only assume after a game like this where many players played better than they had in a while, that Laviolette will stick with these lines moving forward. But as far as like a couple of plays for, Lafreniere in this game, there was a play, and this is the JT Miller effect, I would have to imagine. There was a play where the puck was, behind the Wild net. Lafreniere went in there on the forecheck. He delivered a hit. The Wild got possession of the puck. JT Miller delivers a hit. Lafreniere eventually gets the puck back, slips a short pass to Miller, and then JT comes out in front and tries to stuff the puck home. Now, it didn't go. Obviously, they didn't score there, but a great scoring opportunity, and all due to the fact that the Rangers got in there on the forecheck. They played physical. They won a puck battle. All good stuff. All the kind of things that you want to see moving forward, especially from Lafreniere, who, to be fair, we talked about this in the last episode, has struggled quite a bit recently. So that was a big play. And there was also a defensive play that Lafreniere made. Again, it's not going to make any highlight reels or anything like that, but it's the start of the third period. Rangers are up 1-0. The first 2 minutes here, first minute and a half, I believe. We know how bad the Rangers have been this season at times, or, often quite frequently at the start of periods, at the start of games. So again, you're nursing a very fragile 1-goal lead. And keep in mind, they ended up giving away that 1-goal lead twice in this game before they ended up winning it in overtime. So you're nursing this 1-goal lead, and the Wild have possession of the puck at the start of the third period, and they're zipping through the neutral zone and looking like they're going to go in on the rush. So you're holding your breath for multiple reasons here if you're a fan of this team. First of all, the Rangers can't defend the rush. There's that. And there's also the fact that we know they're always, or not always, but a lot of time steps slow at the start of a period. So, oh my God, here we go. We might be in some trouble here. Lafreniere just clean picked the guy's pocket, just took the puck right away. I don't even remember what Lafreniere did with the puck after he had it. The bottom line, the more important play was taking it away. A big turnover forced by Lafreniere there, because you just don't know. You just don't know which of these rushes, which of these scoring chances, which of these opportunities for the Wild at the start of a period when the Rangers are often a half step slow, which of them are going to lead to a goal. So did Lafreniere prevent a goal here? I have no idea. Hopefully, the save would have been made or the Rangers would have played some defense, but I'm not willing to take chances. If I can avoid it any chance that I get, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are with me on this, I'm happy to do so. So not like a phenomenal game by Lafreniere, but I think overall just a lot of little things like that where he looked a lot better in this game than he has recently. And the other thing that I like about these line combos, I don't think it hurts anybody. Nobody comes out of this any worse. Nobody's being like unfairly punished here. It's just a 1-for-1 swap, Cuylle for Lafreniere. And I think both these lines, every player on these two lines, I think look better than they have probably in a while. I know Panarin, he's been on a scoring bender recently, so maybe it doesn't apply to him, but he doesn't come out of it any worse. Bottom line, this switch worked. It was nice to see, and you hope that they obviously keep using it moving forward. So got to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to shift our attention to Matt Rempe, and more specifically, what I consider to be the worst call that I have ever seen in my 30-plus years of watching professional sports. We're going to discuss that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place so that you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can now use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. There's easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, so one more thing to talk about here before we call it a day, and that is this BS targeting of Matt Rempe that we've seen in recent games. As far as whether or not the officials are legitimately doing this, legitimately targeting Matt Rempe, and basically just being very trigger happy and looking to call a penalty on him for next to no reason, I mean, how do you even deny it at this point? Do we really think that, like, if one of the and we'll break down the play in just a second, but if one of the like star players in this league did what Matt Rempe did on this play, do you really think they're going to end up in the penalty box? And if the answer is no, then Matt Rempe shouldn't be there either. But he was, and almost cost this Rangers team a game. You got to remember, the Rangers are in a playoff chase right now. Every point is absolutely massive. Every goal scored in every game is absolutely massive. And to think that, they could have ended up with no points in this game instead of 2 because of this absolute dog bleep call by these officials, it's tough to accept it. Obviously, the Rangers won, so I guess in a way we can breathe a little bit easier. But this is awful. And let me acknowledge here right away, I don't think that Rempe has been like a complete angel during his season plus here in the NHL. Obviously, debuted last year and has played a good chunk of this season as well. There have been times where he's delivered a hit that to me crosses the line, that to me is suspension worthy. I do think there's been times also where the NHL has gone a little bit overboard. There was one hit that Rempe had against the Devils where he got the guy in the head, arms up and everything. And I said, okay, maybe like 3 or 4 games would be about right for this. And they end up giving him 8. I thought that was a little bit overboard, maybe trying to send a message. Maybe it's all part of their, targeting campaign against Matt Rempe. Can't say for sure. But I'm not like blind to the fact that, yeah, Rempe has crossed the line at times. I'm reasonable. I will certainly admit that. But what we've seen, not just in this game, but the one before it against the Jets, absolute garbage calls by these officials, who I think it's become pretty obvious do have it in for Matt Rempe. We'll start with the one against the Jets. This one wasn't as bad as the one against the Wild, but it was still pretty bad. So Rempe is in the offensive zone trying to set up shop in front of the net, which he should do that. He's got the size and strength to be able to do that, provide a screen, maybe get a deflection. We saw him score on a deflection not too long ago, but he gets shoved right into Connor Hellebuck and falls down and gets a piece of Hellebuck, obviously, but he ends up getting called for a penalty for this. It's a terrible call. The only slight defense I'll say for the refs on this call is that when it comes to, contact with goalies and what's interference and what's not, and did he give this guy a chance to make the save, there's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of gray area. So for that reason, that's the one slight defense you could give to the officials. There is no defending what happened in this game against the Wild. Basically, Matt Rempe is on the ice, away from the puck, skating, and Devin Shore, I think he might have just been on the ice, but regardless, Shore gets in the vicinity of Rempe. Neither one of them seemed to notice the other one there, and they basically just kind of brush into each other, and Devin Shore falls down. Now, I saw certain people, because I commented about this on Twitter as well, I saw certain people saying that, Shore should have gone off 2 minutes for embellishment. I actually don't think that Shore was embellishing here. I think it was just a case of 2 players colliding into each other, and he lost his balance, and one player is bigger than the other, so, physics, right? I don't think it was embellishment. I think he legitimately lost his balance and fell down. But to call a penalty on Rempe for this is lunacy. It's insanity. Insane is one of those words, gets tossed around quite a bit in the sports world, right? It completely fits here. It undersells this call. I honestly believe this is the worst call I have ever seen in a sports game at any level. And I've been playing and watching sports for more than 30 years. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. Now, it's not as important of a call as some other, big bad calls that have been made over the years. It's not like this happened in a championship game or a game 6 or a game 7, whatever it might be. But and people will forget about this in like a week or two, right? It's not one of those calls that's going to linger throughout history. But as far as just the call itself, if you take away like the circumstances, this is the worst call I have ever seen. This is not a penalty. This is absolute lunacy to call this in this situation here. So, yeah, I mean, I got that off my chest. I feel a little bit better now that I've done it. But there's kind of a domino effect here, I think, as well. And it leads me to something else that I want to talk about. Peter Laviolette cannot be swayed by the NHL's apparent targeting of Matt Rempe to take Matt Rempe out of the lineup. This was a discussion going into the playoffs last year. You know, there's games that Rempe played, there's games that Rempe was a healthy scratch, and that's all well and good, and that's fine. But Peter Laviolette cannot be influenced by these atrocious calls to take Matt Rempe out of the lineup. And I know that, you know, people have different opinions on Matt Rempe. Some people love him, some people don't like him. He's not everybody's cup of tea, and I understand that. But Peter Laviolette cannot be swayed by these garbage calls. If Peter Laviolette determines that, okay, Matt Rempe being in my lineup, that gives this team a better chance to win, then he needs to keep doing it, regardless of how the officials are going to treat Matt Rempe. Because you can't let the NHL win in a situation like this. Rempe's a very unique player, very specific skill set, obviously uses his size and strength to his advantage, or he does as long as the NHL permits him to do that. So if that makes the team better, and Peter Laviolette has come to that determination, then he can't back down here and make Matt Rempe a healthy scratch for the next game. If he wants to scratch Matt Rempe for this game or that game because, well, I want to get this guy into the lineup, or, you know, I feel like this matchup, we don't need Rempe as much as for that matchup, that's fine. But it can't come down to this nonsense that we've seen from the NHL. And it's not fair to the player either. And again, I understand not everybody loves Matt Rempe. It's fine. But this is somebody who some of his best attributes, the size, the toughness, the physicality, the ability to deliver a big-time hit. You know, what is Matt Rempe supposed to do the next time that he's lined up to deliver, you know, a really big but clean hit to an opponent? Is he supposed to just peel off? Certainly, we don't want to see him do that. But if it's a big spot in the game, like, is Rempe going to, you know, avoid delivering a hit that could make a positive effect for his team? Or is he going to, you know, deliver the hit, but kind of maybe only go like 25% as much as how hard he could have hit them? That's not right either. You know, this still is a very physical game. And I know they're trying to get the dirty hits and the headshots out of the game, and that's great. But what we saw here was just an absolute farce. And it can't continue like this. I know Peter Laviolette mentioned that they've talked to league, as well they should. But we can call it there for today. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. And, yep, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will see you next time.